Hey Soul Tribe, it's Kate and Kerry.
We are so excited to have you hear this new episode. Please review and subscribe at the end. It's free and it helps us keep spreading our message to you, our awesome listener. Thanks so much and enjoy the episode.
Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Soulsessed Twins. I'm Kerry, your host in Cali.
What is up, guys? I am Kate in New York. So happy to be here and talking about a fantastic topic that was brought to us from one of our fabulous listeners. And we can't wait to get into this.
Yeah, totally. And what it's about is talking about being able to relax without guilt, learning to slow down and be able to not just go all the time without guilt and, feeling bad about it.
Yeah. So I just think the topic is so good. And really, I love how I'm going to break down our listeners' question into Kerry and I are of the 2 to 3 parts, because they are simplified that way if you could do it like that. So the first question was, what do you do about feeling bad or guilty for no reason? Right?
Yeah.
And like
Yeah.
remembering that.
Yeah, I just always remember, I just felt bad and guilty for existing, basically.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, like a constant cloud of just like, I'm doing something wrong because I'm here.
Yeah. And for me, like, thinking about that, where I first began taking care of myself and living a healthier life by not drinking, not smoking anymore, not being bulimic and abusing myself through, with food, like stopping all of these habits and coming out of that, you would think I would feel fantastic. But throughout the day, I started to realize, like, I feel like shit. Like, I feel bad. There's something like, I just feel so guilty. Like, why? What is that? And feeling bad or guilty for no reason. And finally saying to my sponsor at the time, this is 2005, and just saying, like, why feel bad? Why do I feel bad or like guilty all the time? And she said to me, are you experiencing survivor's guilt?
Mm.
Hit me like a bag of bricks. I had never heard that expression before, and asked her, what is survivor's guilt? And survivor's guilt, there's 2 definitions of it, or 2 ways that you can have it. And obviously the survivor's guilt that most you would think about would be when you get in a car accident and you survive and the other person doesn't, and you feel guilty for that. Like, why were you saved and the other person wasn't? That's survivor's guilt. But then there's also survivor's guilt of like experience of just, I'll give you my example of why this hit me so hard, is because I did realize that the guilt that I was carrying around, even though I was taking care of myself now and doing better and cutting out all of these bad habits, the guilt I had of my parents, of my ancestors experiencing hardship, a struggle, the struggle through life. They had the depression, they had, finances, they had, their own host of abuses, whatever that is, whatever that was.
And the potato famine.
And the potato famine, that was people. We heard about that.
Totally. Are you kidding me? Remember, all we ate was potatoes, or they didn't eat them. What was one of the other? It was just a big deal. Okay.
You had to write a report on it.
Yeah. Oh my God. Totally. Oh my God.
And I remember Heather, our best, like such a good friend. And she did I can't believe you're bringing this up, but she did such a great job, like took such care in writing this report. And I was like, they lost their potatoes.
Yeah. They're like, yeah, it's all we had. Okay. Big deal.
Or didn't. We don't know.
Or didn't. Whichever way it was, something happened that was really bad and we heard about it.
That's it.
And
So,
now and felt guilty about it
of course,
years later because somehow we were involved.
the Irish guilt too. So that was like a big aha moment for me, was like, oh my God, like just walking around feeling guilty for no reason is because I did feel guilty that I was spared an entire life of struggle. And here I am now, happy, joyous and free, or certainly on my way to it.
Yeah. And also, too, I wanted to say, stopping all those behaviors, like you said, you'd think it would just be like, oh, aren't I so happy now? No, you're so used to doing things that made you feel so degraded and so not good that it's just like a habit to feel bad about existing because you weren't doing things that were supportive and helpful. So it's just like also a habit of just feeling guilty and shame and all that.
Yeah. Which you're reminding me of how you studied like a lot of Joe Dispenza. I read a lot about him too, but you really love him and studied his work. And it just is also like really recognizing the physical aspect of us and also the mental aspect of us, and how we train our brains to become reliant on these bad habits, even though they're bad for us. There's also the physical element of they are producing dopamine. Dopamine feels really good. So when we're putting our bodies and our mind in these, even though they're bad habits, the body and the mind forms a habit. And so you get into, that's why it's not just so easy to say, like, you know what, I'm going to eat healthy from, tomorrow on. It's not
Exactly.
easy. Yeah. Because there's a physical element to us and a mental one too. The brain is signaled, okay, it's time now, right? It's time to feel like shit. It's time to pick up the cookies. It's time to pick up the wine, even though it's bad for us.
Yeah, which is exactly why you do have to do mental exercises and the journaling and the getting in there because you have to break the synapse that's firing and create a new one. And
Mhm.
it takes time. And that's why people usually throw in the towel because they think, oh, it's not working.
Mhm.
No, you also have to do a little more work in order to break the ritual, break the habit, and create a new one. And that just takes some time. And that's the only thing that people are missing. It's like they throw the towel in before the miracle happens,
Yeah.
right? Because it takes longer than people really give it.
Right. And the numbness of it all, is wearing off. And that's the whole reason why we were doing those things, because you don't want to feel that. But once you kind of thaw out and give yourself those days, the crossover, the feeling good comes. It comes. I wouldn't be here if it didn't.
Yeah. Well, also too, because your dopamine levels are so out of whack actually with these, behaviors that you don't like drinking and overeating, that they have the cortisol and dopamine levels dysregulated. So that once they're getting regulated, it takes a minute that you feel bad until they do. But then once they do, it's more of an even keel on regular natural doses of dopamine because your cortisol isn't so raised and spiked, so
Mhm.
that your effect is more natural.
Right. So once becoming aware of the survivor's guilt, and I definitely was carrying it, I had to take myself through a process of allowing myself out of suffering and realizing that Kerry and I, because it's not just me, it is Kerry too. Like, what a miracle, what a blessing, how grateful that we both get to experience a more, happy, joyous, and free life of like, a life free of that kind of suffering. And that our ancestors and our parents and all of it does go back, it does carry that far back, are elated that we're finally breaking these generational chains. And curses of whatever that may be. And that, if that's your experience too, like whatever that is something that now should be celebrated, and just so grateful for that. We are the generation that has broken so many destructive behaviors and habits.
Yeah, and just pass on a new lineage.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, our kids are getting a different experience and witnessing a totally different life and upbringing through us, right? And I mean, that does make me feel proud or happy, or just like, wow, like my son has never ever seen me drink.
Yeah.
He's not in that ritual of like, oh, it's 5 o'clock. Oh, this is what happens. Like it just doesn't happen. It doesn't exist. And I'm glad. I'm really glad for that. It's been a horrible thing in our, lineage to have that going on. And so it's like to have that stop. It's like,
Mhm.
whoa. And now it's like, wow, infinite possibilities for what will be created instead. Right. And
Yeah.
like just having good wellness things going on around. Like Billy meditates. He hasn't in a while, but he used to.
Right.
But he does, like, he loves that, and just it's just really cool to have these healthier habits going on already. Imagine,
Yeah.
when I was fucking 9, I was like stealing Cabbage Patch, miniature Cabbage Patch things or Smurfs from things and stuff.
Tiamo. Oh, poor
And
Tiamo.
Tiamo.
And they had the black Madonna wrist bracelets that
Yeah.
we all
Right.
stole,
And you
robbed,
know,
blind.
yeah, and just like stealing gum and not doing healthy things from the get-go. So to
Totally.
say that my son meditates or has like a little more consciousness than I did is like tremendous.
Tremendous. And two, you don't have to have addiction in your family, and you can still experience survivor's guilt. A lot of it, I think, is, talking about the generational curse of our parents and before them, of this feeling of having to suffer through your day, that life was hard, that you were on your own, and that they did experience a lot more than we did. They really, they had wars, they had the depression, they had all this stuff. So they had a right to, be like down and out, but you can be having survivor's guilt for just living a better life than your parents, or that your known history is of. So you don't have to have the addiction part.
Yeah, and or even of just your friends, right? That you're stepping away from a life that you've lived for so long and trying to improve yourself that you can feel guilty about it from your old, set, that you're trying to just improve yourself and level up. And it's like, who do I think I am? Or am I allowed to do this? Or, they're going to think I'm better than, or anything. And it's like, no, none of that. That's all just a head FUCK, right? It's like, and that we all have to just address and work on and realize, no, I'm just trying to feel better. And I want a better quality of life. And I want to pass that down. And I'm sick of feeling like shit. And I deserve to, rest and improve my way of living if it's not to the standards I actually want to live. Right. And there's nothing wrong with that. And to get rid of the guilt about it, it's actually absolutely something to celebrate.
What's so wild, what you're just bringing up is just reminding me of the survivor's guilt. Although you were getting sober, the survivor's guilt I had with you,
Mm.
because I knew you were in a cult. I knew you were in trouble. I knew you were suffering. And here I wasn't. Of course, I had my own struggles, but I was in a healthy
Yeah.
environment. I had real support, where that was like that was really hard for me. I think that was a lot of the struggle too, is just trying to let go of, you have your path and I have mine, and that getting well doesn't harm you in any way. That's also what the lie is of this survivor's guilt, is or just, getting better, like you're saying, when others are not, or others are in a dangerous, unhealthy environment. It doesn't mean, we think that we are then doing something wrong. We're forgetting about them. We're abandoning them. We're not caring about them. And those are the mind fucks, like you just said, that you got to work through, because it's not reality.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not our responsibility, right? We're each our own responsibility. In the end, you're the only one that can change you, right? And that's another big topic to cover. But also just to get back to, or if you want to move on to allowing ourselves to relax, allowing ourselves to take a break, allowing ourselves to just sit on the effing couch and chill, not do anything,
Yeah.
take a nap, right? It's like,
Yeah.
I just remember too, like walking around my apartment, and I was tired and I didn't want to go to yoga. I was just like in this habit and routine of going, which is great and healthy, but then it becomes unhealthy when you have to go.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't want to. And I'm like, I have to go. I can't just sit here. What will I do? And I realized, oh, I'm afraid to be with myself. I'm afraid to face the quiet. I'm afraid to stop. What will be there if I do? And I just thought, well, let's find out, because I do not want to live like this anymore. I want to be able to stay home and sit down when I need to. And I did. And guess what? It wasn't as scary as I thought at all. And in fact, once you give that allowance to yourself, there's such a relief and like again, lack of a better word, whatever, somewhat of like a proud moment of like, wow, I'm not going to do it. I'm allowing myself to step back and give myself what I need, which is some rest, which we all need, right? It's so crazy. And then sitting in it, working through some anxiety, but really doing it. And it's just like, oh my God. And now I can sit down and not go if I don't want to. And, it's probably a little I'm on the other extreme. Now I don't do anything a lot of the time. Overboard.
Yeah, that is, my experience too. When I read this question, I just thought, always feeling like you have to be doing something or involved in something. And what came up for me were a couple things. Where A, there's an addiction that you've stopped, or B, it's a learned behavior. So growing up for me, I mean, I had both. So A and B, Kate, was right there. I had both. So, but for growing up, always seeing like, my mom never taking a moment and, relaxing. And even though I knew she was tired, but she did have 6 kids and was running a business. So there wasn't like that much time, but we all have time. There's always like that moment. And it is those moments where I knew she was tired and would not allow herself to relax. So there is where the learned behavior comes of feeling guilty when you become an adult and you're yourself tired, or you want a break, and you won't give it to yourself until like nighttime.
Yeah.
I saw.
And you're dead tired. So you're like, oh God. And it's 10 p.m. It's like, no. But I remember mom implementing self-care as she got older. Do you
Right.
remember?
Of course, but this
Okay,
is
yeah.
long,
Right.
long. I mean, we
Right.
were sober. That's when
Yeah.
she really started yoga and all that. But
Yeah.
I'm talking about what gets ingrained in your head when you're a little girl.
Of course, yeah. And it's so societal. I mean, American society, and especially New York. Are you kidding me? It's like kill yourself and then do it again,
Yeah.
and do not stop until, you flew off the hamster wheel and then get back on. How dare you?
And then the other one was that, sometimes you always feel like you have to be doing something or involved in something because you always were. So with if there was an addiction involved, and when that stops, you really see how much planning, plotting, when am I going to, who's going to have it, hiding beers from Kerry in the fridge, like it's like exhausting. So then when you stop that, you realize how much time you actually have, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But in the beginning, you don't, like, time is your worst, it's your biggest enemy, because you're
Yes.
not used to sitting with yourself. And like you're saying, we do all of these things because we want to avoid being with ourselves. And,
Yes.
you think, and I really wanted to stress this, is like, you can't sit still because you can't stand yourself. You hate yourself.
Yes.
But just know this, is that you don't hate yourself. You hated what you were doing. You never allowed yourself to know yourself. So it's not true. We have to really think about that. Like, I can't sit still. And we cursed ourselves for so long. If you were involved in an addiction or some type of habit that you really cursed yourself, you swore you weren't going to do it, and you woke up and you did it and you hated yourself. You didn't hate yourself. You hated the addiction part of it. You hated the thing you were doing. And so now you just have to get comfortable sitting with you.
Yeah. And I was going to say, you hate that version of you because
Exactly.
it's not the truth of who you truly are. So really, it's like you don't even know yourself enough to hate yourself.
Right.
Right. So it's like, no, you don't hate yourself. You hate what you've been doing. Exactly. And allowing myself to, I mean, I just always felt like, too, I was just like such a bag of shisa, like I wasn't allowed to sit down. I didn't deserve the rest. Right. So just allowing that, it's like, no, I'm getting off this hamster wheel.
Mhm.
This is insane. I deserve it. Yes, I do. And changing that tape.
And again, bringing in Dr. Joe Dispenza, but again, it's not that easy. And so we are really rewiring our brains and our physical selves to the chemicals that are being, all of that stuff has to be rewired. And in that, there's pain, there's agony, there's growth. And so at the end of it is where now it's like, and Kerry and I joke about this all the time, like, I can't wait to be by myself.
Yeah. Favorite activity ever.
Being alone, like in heaven. So there is like that crossover, but you got to do it. You got to touch base with yourself and get through it.
Yeah. I mean, funniest person I know.
Right here, myself.
Right here. Again, though, overboard on that. Now I need to get out there a little bit. So
I love it. Yeah, so I think it's a lot of that is just learning to and recognizing if this isn't ringing any bells for anybody, that maybe it is just a generational thing, and thinking, wow, okay, I was taught this, and that we're just going to unlearn and learn how to care for ourselves. Or maybe there is something that you may not be addressing. There may be something that you can't sit still with because you don't want to get honest with it yet. And that's okay. I mean, the first part of the whole battle is the awareness of things, and the fact that, like, you're even here on some type of like, like self-help podcast or, self-betterment podcast is a massive beginning.
it is. And even just to recognize, like, oh, I'm trying to avoid this thing is tremendous, right? And it's like, and then to become aware of it and think, you know what? It is a little too scary for me. I want help with this. And get a therapist. There's so much friggin' help out there right now. There's no excuse not to feel as good as you can because you deserve it. And it's like scary, but on the other side, it's like, it's boogeymen. And or stay with how things are, which will never get better and will only continue to get worse, or fucking risk it and try to feel better. Right? It's like there's really no choice. It's like feel like shit for good and keep going down that, or choose throw the dice on the table and maybe I'll feel better if I stop doing these things that make me feel terrible. I don't know. Could happen.
And it could. And, with that, we know all too well that even though these things that you're sick and tired of and, do want to change, there is also that element of familiarity.
I was going to say that. It's all you know.
It's all you know. And, as shitty as it is, it, you're familiar with it, you know how it goes, you're comfortable in the uncomfortable, that bullshit. But I promise you, there will be a day where you're going to gain enough courage to say, I'm going to go and seek help. I'm going to go and I'm going to make the changes. And Kerry, I love that you said that. Do not do anything alone, especially when you're talking and dealing with yourself and personal development and, changing yourself. You can't do it alone. You may think you can, and we can read and study and do all of these things, and you want to do all of those things. But real work requires a professional, requires some type of
assistance.
Yeah, it does.
And support. I mean, that's true. It is true because I'm like, I went through a lot of things on my own, but even, right?
Yes,
but
you were
still,
you know what I mean? But it's like, but were you, when you really look at the whole, were you really alone? Were you really alone? No.
Right. Because even as fucked up as being in the cult, you still went through things in a community, good or bad. You know what I mean? And some parts of a cult, which is why you stay in them, are good. And which is what the conflict is all about. Because you're like, but this is happening that's really good. This is really fucked up. So you just can't leave because you're conflicted and brainwashed and all that shit. So point is, I didn't do any of it alone.
Mm-hmm.
There was always like at least one friend or something that was not as crazy. And yeah, get some support.
Yeah.
Name it. Yeah. Shit. Something you said earlier. Anyway.
Well,
no. Go. Yeah.
We will be doing a episode on the cult and talking about that, because we do know that a lot of you have a lot of questions, and honestly, just reconciling with Kerry now, I have my own questions of, what happened and all of that along the journey, and Kerry is ready and will share that with you and with me. So look forward to that. Stay tuned with that. It will be coming out eventually.
Yes. And hope this was helpful, right?
Yep.
This one. And thanks so much for joining us. We love all your feedback. I'm telling you, it means the world. It's just everything. So please sending in comments and let us know what else you want to hear if you do.
Totally. Thank you guys so much. Stay tuned for another episode and get soul-sessed.
Yeah, baby.
See you later.
Stay tuned, guys. We are thrilled to be here with each other, and feel so privileged to try and carry a message of hope and positive change to one other person out there. So please subscribe and review and share our podcast to reach that person. And follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Soulsessed Twins and get daily inspo and connect with us.
Let's build this community together.
100%.
So come back next week and we'll see you then.
Get soul-sessed with us, Soul Tribe.
That's it. Bye, guys.